Okay, so welcome to the second video, and I'm going to start by working on this part behind the barrels. So if you were to go into side view, you'll see our reference. So let me start by adding in a cylinder. And instead of 32 sides, I'm going to make it 64 sides because this one is a bit bigger. Generally, the bigger your object is, the more the sides you have to have for it to look equally smooth. I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to move it here. I'm going to scale it till here, just so it matches the reference. And something like this is already pretty good. Make sure to apply your scale or else your bevel modifier might not work out. I'm gonna go into Editmode on this. And if you have a weird gizmo like this, it's because there's a skew button that's on and you need to turn it back to your select box. So I'll press I to inset while I have that face selected. I'm gonna extrude it in a bit, like so. I'm gonna press Shift E to duplicate it, right click so it stays in place, P to separate by selection, and now it's its own object. Now I'll go into edit mode on this, and I'll just extrude it out, maybe till here. And I'm gonna also go into the front view again, and I'm gonna just match the reference by insetting it in and extruding it in again. So you have these two shapes. So I'm gonna copy the modifiers over from this one. So just shift select both of these and select this last. Press Ctrl L, copy modifiers. We will copy the array by mistake, so just press X to remove them. Like so. And I'll right click, shade smooth, right click, shade smooth. And I'll just turn on auto smooth for this as well as for this. Okay, so one thing that I should mention is that for example with this object, if you press the slash key, you can like go into isolation view. But one thing is that this face isn't really visible. So like you can just get away by like selecting this face and deleting it. And if I were to delete it, you'll see that it isn't really part of the mesh. So we can definitely save some optimize the mesh a bit by just deleting faces that we don't really see. Okay, so let me work on the cylindrical part. So this one's pretty straightforward. I can just Shift E to duplicate this part, and I'll just go into edit mode, and I'm going to select it and press S to scale up. Make sure when you scale it this time to only do it in edit mode, because you will mess up your modifiers otherwise. And I'll just scale it on the Y like this, and I'll put it somewhere around here. So I'm going to go into the reference. So something like this is pretty good. Okay, so now let's work on this part in the middle. So I'll just create a cylinder. And I'm going to make sure that this one is 32 sides. It helps to make it a bit less sides because this time we're going to use a boolean operation. I'm going to just make sure that it matches our reference. And I'm going to make it a bit thinner to start, just because we're going to do a weird boolean. And let me just make sure I'm matching the reference. Okay, so something like this. And I'm going to duplicate this with Shift D, go into modifiers, and I'll just turn off the bevel and apply the array, just so that we have this mesh, which they're all like applied arrays, but you also don't have the boolean. And I'll select this mesh because we're gonna do a cut now. Add a modifier, boolean, and let me just remember what's the name of this mesh. So cylinder 007, and I'll just do a boolean here. Now I'll just apply the boolean, and if I were to just delete this mesh and go into isolated view on this, then you'll see that we have this nice little shape. Okay, so now we can add in our bevel modifier and make sure that it's 0.05. Okay, so you'll see that this time, and let me just apply my scale. So you see that this time our bevels may have been a bit thin, and that's because we have a bit of pinching. For example, over here after the boolean, we have some edges that are really close to each other. So just double tap G and just slide it, or you can just slide it in this direction to be honest. So I'll just slide it so that they're just overlapping with each other. So this one's fine, this one's fine. These ones are all fine as well. And now since we have them at the same place, this is a term called double vertices, and you always have to get rid of them or else nothing will work. So select everything with A. While you are in vertex select, right click and merge vertices by distance. So now our boolean should be working pretty good. Make sure it is at 4 segments. Shade smooth. And I'll go into auto smooth and turn this on as well. And also make sure in shading you turn on harder normals. And now our mesh should look pretty good. So for now, I'm just going to scale it till it meets reference like this. And I'm pretty happy with something like this. Okay, so there are many places we can start working on, but I think I'll work on the small tubes first, just so that it will give me a good idea of where I should place these parts. So I'll press Shift A, add in a cylinder, and in this case, the tubes are really small, so I'll give it 16 sides. And I'll rotate on X by 90, and I'll just scale it till I match the reference on a side view. So maybe something like this is already pretty good. Just make sure it juts out a bit over here. Okay. And in the front view, let us make sure that it's matching our reference. Okay. So now I'm going to just apply all transforms, and I'm going to add a mirror modifier. And I'm going to make sure that it's mirrored on a Y as well. So by default, it mirrors based on your origin, which is this orange part. You can definitely choose objects to mirror around, but it's fine for now. So let me just check the reference. So you can see that like this part isn't aligned too much. So one thing I would do is to just move it till I'm like somewhat close to this part. And I would even go into object mode and just move it down a bit. So something like this. Because it's a bit more important to just align it with the bottom one. Okay, so now you can just copy the modifiers. So Control L, copy modifiers. Or not actually, because we had a mirror. So I'll just add it by hand. Add in a bevel. 4 sides. Make sure that the amount is the same as the rest. And turn on shading, harden normals, and turn on auto smooth. And right click and shade smooth. Okay. So now we've created this tiny little tube, and I can just work on this part now. So in this case, I'm going to work on this right side first, and then later I will mirror it to the other side. So for now, I'll just select all these faces and extrude it. And you'll see that I took a bit more than I should, but it's fine. Well, I guess I'll just take these two, to be honest. Okay, so here. And I'll just select this vertex and double tap G to slide it, just to match the reference over here a bit. And I'll just slide it on this one as well, just because I want to match the reference a bit better. And I'll slide it till here. Okay, so these vertices we don't really need, so I'm going to just slide it by selecting it and double tapping G. And then now we have a pretty good shape. So I'll right click and merge vertices by distance while I have every vertex selected, and our bevel should be working again. And I guess now we can start making our mirror modifier. So I'll go to the modifiers over here and add in a mirror. Make sure that the mirror is always before all the other modifiers. So just select this and go up. Okay. And in order to make it work properly, just make sure that you go to wireframe and just box select with the shortcut B, and just select all the vertices on the left and press X and delete it. And you'll see that now this half is being mirrored onto the other half. Okay, so let me start working on this part. So I'll just do something like this, extrude it out a bit, and I will just slide these two vertices, merge by distance, and I can definitely select these two edges and bevel by hitting Control B and beveling. Press C to turn on clamping, and I think around this many sides is good enough. So it's definitely going out a bit more than I'd like it to. So what I'll do is to just move it by hand. Okay, yeah. So I'll just move it by hand a bit in by pressing G while I have them selected. And this one. Okay, and I also have to go and merge vertices again. So now you see that our tubes isn't too aligned. So let me just move it in edit mode a bit. Okay, so something like this. Okay, so now we've pretty much made the shape. And now I can go and make these ones in the back. So I'll just press Shift D to duplicate this, and I'll just move it to the back. And I'm going to my side reference, moving it to around here. And this time you'll see that it's a bit different. So let me just move this part here. And we've pretty much got the shape. I will work on this plate over here. So you can just duplicate this one as well. And you can just move it to the back. And it's the same as this one in the back. Okay, so you see now that we have like some open faces over here. But for now, I'll just leave it as it is. And I will just work on this bottom one. So you'll see this bottom one isn't the same rounded shape as it was in this one. So one thing you can do is to just use the mirror modifier again. I'm gonna just box select and delete these faces. These vertices. And now you have this 1/4, and I'll just turn on the mirroring on the Y. And you'll see that this part is also being mirrored onto the bottom. So in this case, I'm gonna start filling this face. So you can definitely do it in a few ways, but I'll just shift select the both of these faces, and I'll select its edge and press F till it fills it one by one. And it should fill pretty well. Yep. Okay, and I'll just match this part to the back of it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with something like this. And for this part in the back, I'm gonna also just copy it over. So I'll copy this part over, and I will just move it to the back. And this time we're keeping this part, which is the rounded part. So I'll just go into Editmode. Same thing as before. I'm gonna just go and box select all the vertices on the top, and I will just turn a mirror on for the Y, I believe. And I think I deleted like the wrong number of vertices. So let me just go back. So I wasn't supposed to delete these ones. So now if you were to turn on Y mirror, it should look pretty good. And I think I can just apply the mirror first and just scale it down a bit. Like so. So now it should match everything pretty well. And I think in this case, we can definitely fill these faces. Press F to fill. And for this one in front as well, I'll just press F to fill, and I'll just dissolve these vertices. Or maybe... Oh, actually when I fill it, it looks a bit weird. So I shouldn't fill it for now. Oh, it's because I have these faces over here. Okay, so just fill these ones, and it should be good. So now we're pretty much done with the front part. I guess I'll just work on this part and we can call it done for this video. So for this part, we can just add in a cube. So Shift A, add in a cube, and I'll just scale it down and move it till here. And I want to make sure that I'm just planting it like so, and looking at it from the front as well. So it's a lot thinner. Yep. And now I'll just move this part up till here. This vertice, I'll move down with G and Z. And I'll select these two vertices with the circle select. And I'll just move this one till here. So now the shape is pretty good. Add in your mirror modifier and make sure that your origin's back in the world. So press Ctrl A and all transforms to apply all your transforms. And now I think we can just add in our bevels. So just shift select that circle, copy modifiers, and I'll just add it. And I guess I need to add the mirror again. That didn't apply it the first time. So it should be okay. Right click shade smooth and make sure to also turn on auto smooth. Okay, so now it looks clean. So let us work on this 8-sided cylinder. So what I'll do is to just press Shift A, cylinder, and this one I'll make sure that it is 8 sides, and I'll just rotate it on a Y by 90, scale it down, and I'm going to just make sure that it matches our reference over here. Now I'll press R to rotate and Control to move it a bit. So I want to rotate it like perfectly. So if you want to rotate it so that the top is exactly over here, rotate it by 22.5 degrees, I believe. So just press R to rotate while you're in the side view. Press 22.5 and it should be pretty head on. Okay, so I'll just move this over here. Make sure that this mesh matches our front view in terms of thickness. And like this should be pretty good. I'll just copy the modifiers and make sure that I apply my scale first and my transforms, and it should be pretty good. So on the side, we definitely also have a 32-sided cylinder as well. So I'm going to just go into edit mode and just select everything and press Shift S and cursor to select it so that the cursor is over here. Up, go to mesh, go to cylinder, make sure that it's 32 sides. And since the cursor is over here, our cylinder is being made over here as well. And I'll just scale it down and rotate it to fit the mesh. Same thing as before, just copy your modifiers, apply all transforms, and also make sure that you turn on auto smooth, right click shade smooth, and it should be good. And also shade smooth on this as well. And turn on auto smooth. Okay. So let me just move the inside a bit because we don't really need it. I'll just delete this face for now. And it should be looking pretty good. Okay. So I guess we can end the tutorial over here. In the next one, we're going to work on this yellow part over here. And if we have time, we'll work on some other parts as well. So I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.